Warm welcome to this webinar. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare it for today. The only person who's educated is the one who has learned how to learn and change. Taking a step in this direction, Zotalabs, in association with Aptron and Teachers Help Teachers, is preparing for a digital future in the field of education and welcomes you to this pioneering session to have a glance into the classroom of the future. This webinar aims to provide insights into the future of education, keeping in view the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. The current education system is facing a lot of turbulence in maintaining a balance with demands of conventional education and the current changes. The belief exists amongst the parents, the teaching community, and the students that education should not only be to impart knowledge, it also nurture the students' creative abilities with absorbing activities, develop a holistic personality. The billion-dollar question is whether this would be possible on a digital platform. To address this concern and broaden the perspective in today's webinar, we have some very eminent panelists with rich experience in the fields of education and technology who would take us through the journey into the classroom of the future. Moving on to our esteemed panelists for today. Our first panelist is Mr. Alakesh Roy, a mechanical engineer from IIT BHU Varanasi, a postgraduate in management with specialization in marketing and finance from XLRI Jamshedpur, presently managing director of Zamil Steel India Limited. Having started his professional career with Tata Motors, Mr. Roy has more than 30 years of rich and varied experience in several segments and has held many senior and top management positions. Prior to joining Zamil Group, Mr. Roy was the CEO of Reliance Innovative Building Solutions. He has implemented world-class systems and global best practices across the organizations he's worked for. His capable leadership and system implementation were rewarded when he was assigned the additional responsibility of General Director, Zamil Steel Vietnam in 2018. We are indeed honored to have you with us today, sir. Our next panelist is Mr. Subra Sundaram, a graduate of IIT BHU. He holds master's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering from University of Virginia, USA. He has been in the field of software development for the last 35 years. Being an expert in Oracle, he has taught 2 courses of Oracle to classes of over 80 students and privately to many others. He has been a member of several startups. His innovativeness and guidance has enabled 2 of the startups to become highly successful and enable them to sell their products and the company to other firms. He's an established and successful entrepreneur and owns a software firm that carries out software development for private sector and public sector firms in the United States. Mr. Subra Sundaram brings us today his vast, rich experience and vast knowledge in the field of software development and education. So, we warmly welcome you to today's webinar. Next on our panel is Ms. Rakhee Chhabaria, an experienced educator, a teacher trainer, and an early childhood content developer with more than 18 years of experience in the field. She started her own content development company, CII EduServe, in 2009, which develops contents for various preschools and trains educators in teaching methodologies. The company launched its autonomous early childhood education course in 2010 to provide teachers training in essential skills. Teachers Help Teachers, started by her as a small Facebook group in the year 2015 with 200 teachers, has close to 12,000 members today and aims to become a global platform for educators to share best practices and learn from one another. A mother of 2 children, described herself as an educator mother, a change maker, and a lifelong learner, a speaker on various platforms, and an avid scuba diver. She believes that teaching is the most challenging, dynamic profession. We are really glad to have you with us today. And our last panelist is Wing Commander Ajay Arora, a former Air Force officer with an exemplary professional record with the Indian Air Force. He is a graduate of mechanical engineering from IIT BHU, Varanasi, and has done his post-graduation in aeronautical engineering at Air Force Technical College, Bengaluru, holds a master's degree in software systems from BITS Pilani, has undergone the General Management Program from IIM Lucknow. Apart from having served with the Indian Air Force, Wing Commander Arora has served with Air India and has been a freelance consultant. Presently, he's a director, strategic alliances and partnership at Zotalabs. He would be the moderator of today's webinar. I hand you over to Wing Commander Ajay Arora. Have a lovely time.
Thank you, viewers and all the panelists. Thank you, Priya ma'am. As we all know, technology will never replace great educators. But technology in the hands of great essential that teachers and students have regular access to technologies that support and advance reasoning, problem solving, and communication. We all respect, we all love educators as the change agents who are the new empowering tools for future ecosystem of our education. In today's webinar of Classroom of Future, I invite our eminent panelists to provide an insight through their decades of experience, and I invite our first panelist, Mr. Alakesh Roy.
Okay. Good evening to
Mr.
all.
Roy, you have been involved in running various organizations successfully, and you have in-depth knowledge of acquiring the people force and molding them into useful assets. Today, my questions to you shall be more on the present change teaching methodologies and the fitment of this new generation who are taught digitally into people asset. So my first question to you shall be that how will technology affect education in the future? Will COVID-19 enforced digital learning enhance or worsen the job fitments and job readiness of present university students and adoption and also the consumption of their knowledge as a whole? You being chairman of CI Pune Zone Council also, so I would like to know your inputs on these aspects. Mr.
Okay.
Alakesh.
So good evening to all. I think, Ajay, your question is very loaded and also very, it has got a large gamut of things to cover. Now, when I say that, see, we were typically brought up in a education system which was more direct and with a physical connect and physical contact. We are entering into an age where, whether it is COVID or non-COVID, into an age where we see a lot of interaction that is not a physical interaction. Now, what happens in that case, the monitoring system of the education and the process thereof will be changing. And the output, that evaluation or criteria and the output of that deliverables will also undergo a lot of change. That is the first change. Now, what will happen when there is a lack of connect amongst the group and also amongst the teacher and tutor? So it is the people skills which the industry generally looks into, and the attitude. How this people skill and attitude can be addressed when you have got a virtual platform of education, and how that will be put into use by the industry or any other organization is the key challenge. Now, what happens if we are, when we are interviewing a candidate, obviously there is some amount of knowledge which is to be tested, and which I think the certificates and the score and the education system delivers. But the main thing now people are looking at is that how fast that person can be educated further to suit the need of that industry or the organization. Now, when I say that, I can say you in education, gone are the days of our times when education was a subject that is education was over, that I have completed my education. Probably in the future generation, no one can say that I've completed my education. It is a continuously learning process here on, and Ajay knows us. Probably we are, myself, I know that I am studying more than what I studied in my college days. That is all because I have to run the race and run a continuous race, competing with people who are fresh talents and fresh from the college and fresh from ideas. And then we'll have to also manage them. So you can only manage them if you're ahead of them in terms of your understanding of the subject and the process and the future. So people talk about vision, but when we talk about vision, it is always clouded by your past and your experience. The days which are coming is there will be no experience to support your vision, but you will have a conviction to go for the vision. So I think education in the coming days will change in the way that we will have to challenge our own paradigms towards education and towards the output. See, today, typically in India, sorry, Subra, I'm using this. In India, what is happening? You are testing the recall value. Probably the recall value will no longer be valid. Probably the how much amount of education that you can gather every day, every moment, every hour will be the key to the future. Lastly, before closing, I can say only one thing. There will be only one degree which will matter in life, is whether all your education that you have acquired and you will be acquiring is relevant or irrelevant. If you are relevant in the world as on date, as on that time, you will be pursued by all the industries and organizations. If you are irrelevant, then you will go away. Thank you. Over to you, Ajay.
I appreciate your views about the job readiness in this new digital era. And our viewers would have found your views very informative and benefiting. In these times, these are the most worrisome aspects the job-ready youth ever witnessed. I'll move on to our next panelist with a question on education and how digitally we can connect for the tutors, for the students. I invite Rakhee ma'am.
Yes.
Mrs. Rakhee, you being the CEO and founder of CII EduServe and also being in education ecosystem for last 18 years with full involvement of revamping the system and also empowering our educators through an initiative, Teachers Help Teachers. I warmly welcome you on board this webinar. My first question to you is that if we all get education digitally as envisaged in this new normal, wherein we can access the whole world, best faculties, tutors on the go, what suggestions you would like to give to our students and educators as to how holistically they can consume and deliver contents respectively?
So, thank you for the wonderful question, Mr. Ajay. So my take on the online education would be that nothing can replace the human touch and the social connect that teaching brings in. A teacher's role can be aided with the help of technology, but cannot be substituted by technology. And but the only reason is that the teacher brings in with her probably not only her expertise and knowledge, but also the tact and the way that she takes care of the learners in the classrooms and provides them with individual attention. So we may say that the world is going global, or the world is going online. We have the best faculty available at the click of a button. Yes, absolutely, and that's indeed a boom. But the best way to go forward would be a blended approach where we have teachers coming in. We have a physical classroom where the students can go connect, and then we also have online classes blended into the curriculum, which helps the learners to connect probably with experienced faculty around the world. So the suggestion for schools forward would be to probably have this kind of blended learning approach embedded into their curriculum right from the beginning, because post-COVID things are really going to be different, and we really don't know, even if we open, are we in for another lockdown? So that's something that all schools need to be ready with, and I think pretty much the schools are taking note of that and are taking into consideration the balance between offline and online. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rakhee ma'am. You have wonderfully summed up the aspects of new normal for our education ecosystem, comprising of students and educators. I'm so thankful for your views, and you are just right on the spot. So I'll move on with my next question to our next panelist, Mr. Subra Sundaram. Mr. Sundaram?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
You have been into digital teaching and empowering the world by providing the software solutions across the globe. You have been quite close to the Western world, especially the USA, for more than 3 decades. You are here with us as the voice of digital technology of future classrooms. My question to you would be focused on technology and its use by educators, students, and administrators as a whole. My first question to you is that we have been talking about the role of technology in education, and especially how technology can create the learning equilibrium. But do you think that COVID-19 is a watershed moment in the education?
Well, thanks, Ajay, for the question. And it's great to listen to both Alakesh and Mrs. Rakhee. Well, it is a watershed moment in the sense that everybody is forced to be home and studying. But like someone said when Trump won the election, it's not the end of the world. It's just 4 years. Dalai Lama said that it's just 4 years and you'll get through this also. So for a lot of people who are upset about it. So same way, this is not, this is just 1 year. It's going to be okay. I totally agree what Mrs. Rakhee said in terms of human touch. That's totally critical. And as the three of us know, yourself and Alakesh and me, we've been, friends for 30 years, 35 years since college time. So that human contact is totally essential. So, but this is just going to be 1 year where the COVID until the vaccine comes or whatever, there is a separation and people have to study from home. And yes, it's going to be a challenge. And, but, people are creative and I'm learning new things during this time, how to work and how to operate. And I think yes, it'll be a challenge, but people are going to find new ways of relating to each other and studying and coming up with things. And all the more, just to go back to one of the points, education has become so costly here in the US. You go to a college, you come out with a debt, a student, if he can't pay for it, if his parents can't pay for it, his or her parents, they come out with a loan of something like $200,000 to $300,000 minimum. So if you can do it digitally, it's so much cheaper. It's affordable. Education is affordable for everybody. So in that sense, it's great. I've liked that aspect of education recently, in the sense that you can just get any degree you want, and all these, like Alakesh said, you have to be constantly upgrading yourself. And the education systems, like for example, take Salesforce. It's a platform. It's a service platform, software as a service, and that one makes all its courses and training available online and certifications online, pretty much free of cost. So you can become a specialist in some software in 3 months to 6 months if you just put time into it while you're doing something else. So online education is a great equalizer in that sense. And I don't want to take away from the concept of face-to-face and contacts and like a blended environment or somewhere, and also just the camaraderie you get from other students. But I feel like online education technology have made it such an equalizer, like, and new methods keep coming up. Nobody had heard of Zoom 3 months ago. Now that's all we use. That's the only thing software used to talk to anybody or everybody, and it's free. So that's all I want to start with, Ajay. Thank you.
It's great analysis and in-depth views on this topic. I am Thankful to you, Mr. Subra. You are just a true technocrat who has told us everything about it. So now I'll take on some more questions to our first panelist, Mr. Alakesh.
Yes, Ajay, go on.
Yeah. Now this time it is not so overloaded question. It's just a very small question, Alakesh. Do you feel that content platforms are the threat to educational institutions?
You want a direct answer, a short answer?
Yeah, sure.
No, never. I think Miss Rakhee has nailed the point that technology can aid education. It cannot substitute. You cannot substitute the this physical form of education. I'll love to see a child being educated and never ever going to school. I want to see the holistic development, whether the child has it or not 16 years down the line. So I don't think it can ever replace. We can, yes, it can aid. I fully support that statement. It can be aided. And today, most of the schools are doing that. Even the colleges are doing that. Today, it is not it is earlier you used to have a chalk and a board and the teacher used to write. Today, PowerPoint and all the presentation and the pre-work is being done. I think this has helped the education system to actually evolve and deliver more content within the same 1.5 hour college or the period time. So that will stay. You cannot take away that. First. Second is whatever discipline. That is another criteria. That if I want to do something, I will simply switch off the camera and do that. So is this a discipline? I don't think that is discipline. It is showing a kind of disrespect. Third and the most important aspect, and most of the parents and the young parents are complaining is, or rather the teachers are also complaining, that when I am sitting at home and my child is getting education or input from the media or from the screen, first of all, everyone is evaluating the teacher, be it the brother or the sister or the mother or the father, even the servant. They have all comments for the teacher that whether she or she is doing it rightly, wrongly. So earlier, the evaluation was within the college or the school or the classroom group. Now it is that into 4. So you don't want to say, you don't want to subject your teachers to an extent or a level where he or she is under permanent scrutiny, permanent evaluation. The reverse is happening, whether the child is getting evaluated or the teacher is getting evaluated. I don't surprise. Maybe my gray hair is speaking, but that is the way.
Yeah, you are right, Alakesh. And I always say that the good teachers explains, the superior teachers they demonstrate, and the great teachers they inspire. So probably with digital technology and the earlier day of like schooling on the blackboard and all, we are going to get great teachers, and they can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and still a love of learning for all of us. So once it has come to the teachers, so I'll move on to Rakhee ma'am. And yeah, Rakhee ma'am. So do you see the role of teachers going to be more challenging in future, like with digital as well as like the blackboard teaching, and how to give assignments, how the assessment can be done up, and how fair the assessments will be there, and the other aspects into it which are there?
Wow. Yeah, so I think I would probably take more than an hour to answer this, but yeah, to sum it up, yes, teacher's role is getting very challenging because suddenly a whole lot of things are expected from the teacher. Initially, it was limited to classroom teaching, and it was limited to n number of hours. The teacher would go to school, execute the learning, and come back, and then probably she or he would disconnect and move on to his or her own personal life. But since the time this has happened, there has been no disconnect. In fact, the educators have been thrown into the pool where now we have to equip ourselves not only with technical skills, but suddenly whatever is done is undone. So we need to make new lesson plans. We need to evolve new ways of assessing our learners. We need to be creative. We need to have etiquettes, online etiquettes. We need to understand the technicalities of each and every platform, be it Google, be it Microsoft, be it Zoom, be it any other private platform. Then we also need to understand the kind of pitch, the kind of tone, the kind of content to use, the kind of assessment, the kind of worksheets. So it's a whole lot of work that has come on the teacher without actually understanding that this is what is coming in. So we conducted webinars for educators, and it was really amazing to see teachers joining in huge numbers, because of the only reason that there was no guidance given. Nobody knew what to do, and teachers were just figuring out. And I think the important aspect out here is that they were more keen to understand that, okay, if I'm able to learn something and I'm able to connect with my learners, then let me learn that. So there was no holding back, is what we saw when educators were coming in for the webinars. And we also saw that that huge shift from not talking about tech, or not being online, or not showing your face online, to everyone being suddenly comfortable with Zoom, showing their faces online, the background, irrespective of they were open to showcase their entire privacy, their home, their kids running around, and still maintain that focus. So Mr. Alakesh spoke about disciplining, time management, and suddenly the teacher is teaching the whole family. So they were absolutely okay with that, and they said, yeah, if this is what I need to do. Of course, there are various aspects to that. It's a job, and many of them took it up as a challenge. But there's also that passion, in that educator, that yes, come what may, it's a challenge, and I'm going to be able to. If I have to connect, I have to learn, and that's what we have seen, that educators are now more open to learning, and they have taken the onus themselves to learn. And this shift itself is going to create waves in the education industry, because now we're going to be having more focused, more professionals, and more dedicated educators in the field. Because if you're open to learning, and if you're open to change, then I think you're a true educator, and that's how a school would also appreciate your value. So yes, the teacher's role is challenging, and in fact, I would say education itself is challenging in India. So if you're a school owner in India, yeah, God bless you. And then of course the principal, and then of course the teachers, because parents demand and the school gives in, but the people who get squashed are the teachers. Yeah.
That is rightly said, ma'am.
Yeah.
And now I'll go back to Mr. Subra, and the same aspect, like, we are kind of, talking about how to digitally teach the students, and how the teachers should be preparing themselves digitally, how the administration should be preparing them, digitally, the entire ecosystem of education. So my main aspect is with the students. How will students react to this change? Because earlier there was less of digital engagement. Now it is more of digital engagement. Are we going to create a kind of a digital cage for them?
Well, see, it's going to be overwhelming depending on the type of person. Some people are used to being remote, working alone, even among kids, there's, different set of people. Some people are just interested, fine. They're fine with being in a computer, not talking to other people. They're introverted. They're totally good with this. And some people are extroverted. They need to be outside talking to people and all of that. So you got to kind of balance it. See, everybody's going to have to figure this out. This is going to be, and really quickly. If you just try to do everything, and I always remember this story of Buddha talking to one of his first students, who was a prince from his Shakya clan, and that person was a very good Veena player, and he was striving to meditate and enlighten himself, and he was getting frustrated. Then Buddha told him, if you string your Veena too tight, what happens? It says the string breaks. If he said, if you let it too loose, what happens? Then the music is not good, or it doesn't, you don't hear the sound. He said, yes, you got to, tension it right, just right to make it right. So same way, people have to figure this out. And you have to discipline yourself. I found this recently. What I had to do was put my hours of day down and then put what is my priority. Is my priority this or that? If whatever is my priority, I set it up first, then put the rest of my life around it, right? Rest of the hours, how many hours do we have? 17 hours of waking time. So if your priority is so-and-so, set it for that. Then everything else can hang around that. So that way you kind of you have to structure yourself, which is kind of hard for me. It's very hard. So I have to have a structure for me to kind of lead my life. Otherwise I just kind of, do whatever comes to mind. And then by the time you wake up, it's already 10 o'clock at night and you have to, go to bed again. So it's the challenges of they're just in different forms, but the solution is always the same. You just have to balance yourself and see what's priority, set your priorities and keep going. And yes, it is a digital cage. And as you know, there is no equivalent for human touch, like, everybody has pointed out, Alakesh and Ms. Chhabaria. So the human touch is totally important. But again, that's what I say, discipline yourself and you can make it happen. And you can, don't again, turn your phone off, turn your computer off. Again, just what is priority in your life, allocate time for everything and set priorities, then that's the best way to deal with it. And you're going to learn. It's not quick. It's not going to be overnight. Over to you, Ajay.
Yeah, I think, one is that we are going to have this particular new normal in our day-to-day life as far as education is going on. Second thing, what I suggest and what I think, like earlier, what we used to do, we used to take a copy and the pen and, we start solving the maths problem. We already have the books. So that can be kind of replicated manually and a lot of practice can happen. At the same time, you can have a small blackboard, you can have a small whiteboard, you can do a lot of practices there. You can have, all those sort of things which an actual classroom replicates. So probably you'll not be missing and you'll be, getting around with digital aspect also and the other aspect also. And probably this can be one of the method where you can feel yourself that you are not in the digital cage. So next, I go back to our first panelist, and I would like to ask Mr. Alakesh that, I'm right now, I'll talk about the stakeholders. I'll talk about the society, parents, teachers, students, and I'll talk about in context of the present changes in content delivery and consumption. So basically, how the entire society and all the stakeholders will take this new delivery and consumption system. Delivery from the educator side and consumption from the student side.
See, I'll tell you, this is my personal experience. Even at the industry or any body or wherever I go for lecture, I generally, when I address even a gathering of 1,000 people, and when I'm doing it physically, it is very easy to know whether my talk or the speech or the content of the same is making sense or is it going and percolating down to the audience. Now, what happens when you're doing a same thing on a virtual platform? First of all, I'm disconnected. I'm connected only through the medium, but never connected emotionally or never connected on a softer way. So what happens in that? I am not able to understand when I'm delivering that kind of anything, a message or a lecture, whether everybody is understanding. So that inclusivity in the digital world has to evolve. It is still not there. I can deliver an excellent sermon, but what about the students or the whosoever has listened? Are they with me? And you'll also understand, Ajay, not everyone has the same pace of learning. So as a teacher, whosoever is the teacher, she always ensures that all students learn at the end of the class. There will be one or two exceptions which will be there, but then you tend to take the class along. That is why you'll see that the standard deviation of any class will not be much. Okay, people might not be, everyone will not come first, but between the first and the last, the gap will not be much in order to say that, okay, he is a dumb and he is a genius. It will never be that. So that is the art of teaching. Now, when you take that art out, you have to substitute by a new art. So it is like something that we have never seen it, or we'll have to evolve as we go away. How do you know that whether all the boxes in the screen, even Zoom has a limitation. You cannot have more than so many boxes in the screen. So you cannot see a class of 60 people. So these are all limitations which we have. Even in the organization, when I'm addressing now today, nowadays I'm also addressing in the MS Teams within the office. That means when I'm addressing amongst the HODs also, or the functional heads, I'm addressing the next door when we are sitting side by side cabins, but doing on the MS Teams. But then again, what happens is you never know whether whatever you are speaking makes sense, or is it going in, or, and also if you look at from the point of view of the societal requirement, we are all social animals. We need to meet, we need to greet, we need to understand each other beyond business or beyond the deliverables. How do you evaluate and how do you find? That is what I am saying, that it is, we are yet to see a student or a learner who has completely self-learned at a home and never interacted with the outside world and still become great. Okay, I'm sure people will be there. I'll tell you another thing which the societal norms and how they're changing. I can share with you. Give me 2 more minutes time. When you introduced all of us, you never said that we are father of 2 or you are father of 2, but you have ensured that Madam Rakhee is mother of 2. Now, in my organization or in any organization, the hardest hit are the work from home parents, and especially the ladies who have got children. They have to sit with their child with the school, and when the education is there, and they are the first person who complain that, okay, it is always best to be in office and the best that the school is operating. So with that, now I'm sure that when the lady wants that the child goes to school, and the lady wants that she is free from all the tensions when the office is opening, I'm sure we have, whatever we have done in the past is the right. I'll make it even more lighter. When our office reopened and when we went back to office, every woman in the office were lean and trim. The men were fat. I leave it to that.
That's funny.
Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Alakesh. And this is quite interesting, webinar which is going on, and I will take on some questions to Rakhee ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, do you feel that educational institutions will start taking contents which theory develops in their daily classroom more seriously? I'm talking to, there are some contents which can be easily delivered through, digital media, but there's still some concepts, tricky concepts or complex concepts, which probably cannot be delivered through digital media. And how the educational institutions are going to take this particular aspect and how they are going to make the whole curriculum to deliver that particular thing.
Okay, so if I correctly understood your question, you're asking me if the schools are open to taking content online and also creating their own content. Was that your context?
Yes. And how comprehensively they can create that, because digitally few things are possible, but there are few things which are not possible. So you can tell the definition of something, or Newton's first law, second law, and third law, but actually when it comes to the explaining, you require a lot of other technological aspects if they are putting that particular thing in practice, or they are just leaving it at that and basically coming out of that particular aspect.
Yeah. So yes, in terms of content development, things are going to change. We are also looking at developing content online, which can be integrated in a way which is interactive. So we're looking at a host of interactive, worksheets or interactive lesson plans, which involves the learner. Because as we were discussing, Mr. Alakesh pointed out that it's the inclusivity that is required, and that can come only with interaction, and that can come only when I'm able to ask questions rather than a one-way traffic where I'm just delivering and that's the end of it. So there is a limited kind of content that can be presented online, and of course schools would be making changes and would be adapting to that. But then again, what needs to be done offline, for example, art, dance, drama, music, all these things, sports, we cannot get everything online. All these skills which are life skills, we can't bring them online, right? So, and that's the reason why I think we also, majority of us are sending our children to school. It's not only for academic purpose, it's also to develop their whole personality, to help them develop confidence, which comes through other activities. So all these aspects at the moment are just being left out because right now the parents' priority is, okay, mera bacha pad kya raha hai, teacher pada kya rahi hai. So that's unfortunately the thought process of how society is, and the system is. And we always are marks oriented. We are always comparing that, okay, this school is teaching online for 2 hours, but mera school to sirf 1 ghanta aa raha hai, aisa na ho, mera bachcha kam padega to usko kam pata hoga. So there's a lot of anxiety of the parents which is actually being put across, and that is what is coming out. So if we leave the education to the people who know what education is, and for example the school owners and the teachers, so if we have that much trust that I'm putting my child in your school, so for example, if I'll go to a doctor whom I trust, right, I'll take my child to a doctor whom I trust, and once I am in that doctor's hand, I let the doctor take the decision, right? I don't come in and say no, ye aise nahi ho sakta. I trust his or her word. So similarly, we don't see that here in education. We argue and we pinpoint faults. So the content development, also is pretty much, on similar lines, where parents will demand certain things and the school will have to give in. But we ultimately have to understand that there needs to be a balance, because there are skills which need to be offline and there are skills which can be offline. And fortunately, we are seeing that change coming in, and schools are taking that step forward they are embracing online technology. They are not defying the role of technology in education. So that is a positive aspect, and I think schools management and teachers are pretty much ready to take on that responsibility. Yeah.
Thank you, Rakhee ma'am. I have a very good question, and I'll move on to Mr. Subra. Yeah, Mr. Subra.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it is on like cybercrime, excessive screen time, and all those disadvantages of being digital. So my question to you is that how do we deal with all these disadvantages like cybercrime, excessive screen timing, cyberbullying, very less human interaction? I'm getting a lot of questions on my chat box on this aspect also. Unequal access to technology, like we have got, especially in India, we have got digital divide in the technology, in the access of that. And how do we embrace these new and innovative technologies with all these disadvantages?
Okay, well, first thing, in terms of all the problems, cybercrime and cyberbullying and all that stuff, I think it's unfortunately everybody has to deal with it. Even now in our offices now, we are dealing with viruses. All of us are learning. It's not like anybody knows the answer. There are new, people come up with new solutions to new viruses, new problems all the time. So everybody has to get more educated. It's unfortunate, that's a new reality. You have to know, okay, I'm going to use my VPN to log into anything. I'm not going to just log in directly. Otherwise, someone could be sniffing on my line and taking my information from me. So, and you're also, you're learning new things as you go along, all along. And that's the challenge as always. And it's, well, I don't know about the digital divide is a real issue. I don't know how to answer that. I think the governments have to get more involved and make it available for everybody, because they say that if you make it available, then people start using. I heard of this experiment in Bombay's Dharavi where somebody left a laptop for kids to use with no instructions. And within 2 to 3 weeks, the kids had figured out how to use it, with no instructions. So all you have to do is make it available to the kids and they'll figure it out. And so the governments have to be involved in that level, and maybe charitable organizations, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that, but definitely it's like everybody else was saying also, it's like at the beginning, I feel like, like the kids have to be together with each other because they learn so much from each other as well. It's people just pick up from other people around you, and then when you extend the education, that's, I'm going back to a previous point. And when you extend the education, then you can do it online. Once you've built the basic foundation with other people and basic everywhere, then you start from there. And that's a short answer, Ajay. In terms of parents, they just have to learn all these things. They have to learn how to deal with these things. And I'm sure that the knowledge is going to be disseminated. Once about 10 people figure the problem and they pay a certain amount of ransom to get their computer unlocked because of a virus, they're going to figure out, okay, they're going to disseminate the knowledge throughout the company, or, and it's going to come out in regular news outlets on how to avoid this kind of problems, right? So people just have to learn. Everybody has to learn, and the parents especially have to learn how to deal with these computer issues. So over to you, Ajay.
I heard that government is planning something on like cable TV and all, where they can give those classes, and which will be available to all without having any digital device, especially in villages and rural areas, because most of the migrant laborers, they have gone back to their villages, with the students who are in the class 6 or 7 in urban areas. Now they are going to be taught in the village environment and in the rural area. So probably this can be one of the solution for this digital divide, and more so the government is already doing and will be doing so. So my question to Rakhee ma'am is that what are the roadblocks into navigating the present classroom into the classroom of future? And also please enlighten us about the digital divide and how to improve upon that.
Oh yeah, digital divide. That's something which has been going on, and in fact, we have been debating on recent government's update on limiting online learning for all schools, and a blanket ban for going online for students up to grade 2. So that's something which the government is planning. It's the verdict has not yet been passed, but I think the digital divide is there. It's pretty much evident. More so because the students who have gadgets at home, who have good connectivity at home, who go to good schools, are able to connect, are able to learn. But as you rightly pointed out, that we have so many students who have who are migrant, who are from belonging to the migrant laborers who have actually moved out. How do we reach out to them? So government is trying, and they are making efforts in terms of the satellite TV is what they are trying to do. That is bring in the satellite connection for them, and the lessons will happen on the TV rather than a mobile phone, which requires internet connectivity. So there are, whenever a problem arises, there is also that it also gives the scope for innovation. And I think, there's a lot of innovation which is happening. There are a lot of apps which have come up in the recent time, and the apps which don't really require internet, but you can be updated about the latest knowledge. And also the parents you just need a phone, and it's an offline app, so you have all the content out there, and you just need a phone for that. So we are seeing innovation stepping in. We are seeing a lot of solutions coming in to solve the digital divide problem. And when it comes to schools, we have private schools, we have public schools. So the reason why we choose and we opt for private schools and not public school itself speaks about the divide in our country. So I think let's not play around with words and call it a digital divide, but let's focus on why we are choosing to send our children to private schools and not public schools. And if the focus could be on the betterment of public schools, then the divide would definitely come down holistically, and we would be able to solve challenges in a much more better way, just like right now we are trying to solve. Yeah, now that's my little one.
Yeah.
He always likes to be part of all our discussions.
I
That's great.
won cricket attacks.
Yeah.
I got 2 Sachin Tendulkar and 3 power plays.
Over to you, Ajay. He can just go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My like a common question to all the panelists: the technology in the classroom. The final verdict from all our panelists, one by one. So I'll once again invite Mr. Alakesh to give a final verdict on technology in the classroom.
See, Ajay, I'm not a judge. I'm also an equal learner in the process. And that too, being a bad student all through my life, I cannot be a good student now. So I'll still love the school. I'll still love the physical school and the physical bonding. You remember, in fact, in all the school and college days, the more amount of learning which happened outside the classroom is what we are boasting of today. The bonding to what we learn from each other and from various aspects of society. So before starting this session, we are talking about, say, between Chennai and Kerala and Bengal. So the mixing of all the cultures, I think that will miss them. Okay. Our time is probably past for learning, in a sense that the new normal will emerge. But obviously, this new normal may not be as much of a fun as we had in our days, during our school days. Having said that, I can always say to you that one of our friends is also chatting in the box. He's saying that this particular aspect is quite temporary. So once we learn to live with COVID, and COVID is not something, because all along in our CII also we discussed, and now we have dropped one aspect of COVID is there is nothing called post-COVID. So no session will have an agenda post-COVID or something. So we'll have to learn to live with COVID, and we'll also learn to live with COVID once the fear amongst the parents also goes away. And what it has done, this COVID, what it has done to the society is more damaging on the psychological level. We are treating each one other than us as a suspect. We feel that other person is contaminated or affected, and then we try to seclude ourselves from them. That is not the way world will move on. World will have diseases in the past, will have diseases in the future. It had diseases in the past. We knew how to quarantine ourselves even when there was some pox, chicken pox, or some kind of disease. We learned to live with the virus and then learn to move along. I think the future of the world, this is my, okay, now I'll sound a little political. Although Mr. Modi has said Atmanirbhar Bharat, it will boil down to organization, it will boil down to families. Each organization, each family will become more and more Atmanirbhar, but the collaborations will always stay. And the collaborative approach is the future of the world. We cannot have a world where there will be expert someone. I cannot be expert of everything. Neither no one is. So it will be more and more collaborative approach, whether you do it physically or through digitally is the call of that point of time. I think we have the physical education has a long way to go.
Thank you. And I'll move on to Mr. Subra to just give the final verdict.
Okay, thanks, Ajay. Well, I kind of, my sense of it is you need to have the foundation in person as much as possible, once all this is over, of course. And then the extension of your knowledge, it's so much easier now compared to, even when we were all studying. It's so much easier to gain any expertise you want. It's almost like the movie Matrix. He puts on software into his brain, and then he knows karate, or he knows kung fu, whatever, right? So something like that. It's almost that easy now to learn anything you want and to become an expert in anything you want to be, one particular area, not expert in everything. But so it's a really, really good time in terms of, as I said earlier, it's a great equalizer, technology, in terms of people learning things. But again, that comes at the next level when you want to grow your talents into something else. But I still, like Alakesh said, I still value the time we had with people and you spent with other peers. Someone even in the chat box said peer learning, something like that. That was very, very valuable for me. And I think it's still valuable because I can see the kids right now, my nephews and nieces and other people, they're like how they're stuck at home and they're missing that camaraderie, But of course, as I said, it's just for a year or less, and it'll be over and they'll be back in the classroom. But again, technology, use it for what it is. It is for extending your knowledge, and I think it's a very, very, very helpful place. So thank you, Ajay.
Ajay, I'd like to make one point. In the today's age, parenting also matters. Why I'm saying that, when I see in my society, there will be 10 boys and girls playing basketball, each having one ball. So I think that doesn't bring in, you don't learn the game. You have the basketball with you, and you know what to do with that with yourself. But you never know what to do when you play as a team. So that brings the parents also.
Collaboration makes the difference.
Yes. Same thing here. Collaboration in terms on the lighter vein, even Ajay, even the answers were being output as the output were collaborated outputs.
Yes.
So, okay, over to you.
Rakhee ma'am, your final verdict on technology in the classroom?
Yeah, technology is here to stay. I completely vouch for it, and we cannot shun it away. And as we're discussing about, there's going to be no post-COVID. We got to learn to live with it, and if we got to learn to live with it, we got to learn to live with this new change. And any change, if we embrace it, is a good change. And I think, as we also pointed out at the beginning of the session, that teachers are embracing technology, schools are ready and looking at embracing new tools to be embedded into their curriculum for next year onwards. So there are talks, and there people are being prepared and are getting prepared to lead the new way and the new path. Because if we are talking about globalized education, then there is no way we can shun technology away and expect us to be globally connected and collaborate all across. So it's something which is I would say a chalk to a teacher and a school and to technology.
Thank you, Rakhee ma'am. Before we move on to our question answer session, I would like to thank my batchmates of IIT BHU, Alakesh and Subra, for coming on this platform and enlightening all of us. And my special thanks to Rakhee ma'am for having accepted our invitation for this webinar.
Thank you so much.
A very special thanks to Priya ma'am for hosting this webinar. And now I think we can take on the questions, and it has been very interesting webinar. And I will slowly get on to the questions and move the questions to individually all the panelists. The first question which has come to me is for Rakhee ma'am, that do you think that digital platform can reduce the gap between urban and rural areas?
Digital platform can reduce the gap between urban and rural areas. So
Yes.
digital platforms, as we are researching and as we know that innovation is happening. So we have apps which are coming up where you don't need internet. So these are the kind of innovation which are going to be useful in the rural areas. Government is also working in their own way to bring in satellite learning on TV, so to make it enable learning on the TV instead of a phone. So there are efforts being made out there to reach out to the rural areas, but till the schools open up and till things get normalized, we will see these we will see this gap, and yeah, we will be seeing this gap, and slowly things will get better, just like the whole economy. There is a setback that the whole economy is facing right now. So similarly, education is also facing the same setback. So many teachers have lost their job. The preschool industry has been badly hit. There are so many preschools which have shut down. So yeah, there are challenges in urban areas as well. So it's not only the rural areas, but even the urban areas that are faced with challenges. And the technology will definitely come handy to bridge that gap. But again, as rightly said, that we need to first be ready to accept it. So yeah, acceptance needs to come in first. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rakhee ma'am. Next question, which I'm getting prompted on, is for Mr. Subra. The question is, private schools in America are so expensive because of the corona and racism. It is affected badly. Do you think that EduTech cope up with it? And also, like the difference between USA versus Indian education. Probably that was not, along with this. So first thing was that private schools in America are so expensive because of corona and racism. It is affected badly. Do you think that EduTech cope up with it?
Well, I see a lot of kids, of course here what you see is, again, there's also like a money digital divide here as well. It's not the same, everybody, it's not like everybody in America has access to internet and laptops and iPads and things, and they have it available. So yeah, does money plays a big role here also in terms of what people have access to, and whether they have, if parents are educated, obviously that makes a whole difference in the kids' education, so that's an aspect here as well. And so private schools are costly, but parents who have money put them there. It's not like, people have to go there. And again, US is a funny system where the schools are funded by the property tax. So if you're living in a rich area, you have a better school system. Obviously they pay more to the teachers, so they get better teachers, and they also have less students per class. And if you're living in an inner city, the property tax is less. So that's what they've been arguing recently about, as you might have heard, about institutional racism. That is one of the first aspects where it affects the society, where you the schools themselves the kids start from there. The kids who go to schools in wealthier areas obviously get better education, or have better access to education. I wouldn't say they have better education. They have better access to education and better facilities. And the kids who live in poor areas have a disadvantage right there. It starts from there. So that's one of the things that's been talked about a lot lately in the last 2 weeks in all the unrest here. So what was the second part of the question, Ajay? There was a
second part of the question was, I think they did not put the full question, but it was something like this, that how can we make future bright for rural education, which is not well versed with ed tech? And you compare with US, probably comparison with US is not here. So we, deal with the domestic, that is India. How can we make future bright for rural education who is not so well versed with edtech?
Yeah, no, I think it's like, it has, like a friend of mine started in Chennai. He started a project by which him and a few others go to certain villages, and they started a whole program where they bought a laptop for this village students who didn't have access to much. So they went and taught them how to use it. Now they give them education. They talk to them through, Zoom or something like that. They talk to them from the city. They don't have to go there all the time. But first they had to even go get them the means to be able to communicate with them, right? It's a nonprofit organization. So what they did was they went to the village, found out who needs what, and then they found out enough students are interested. Then they found a person who can take care of this machine, and they bought a laptop, a desktop or whatever, and they gave it to them, and then they set it all up, and then they they pay for it and provide it, and then they provide education through that. Now the kids are getting sharper, in a year they're doing projects on the computer, so they're doing different things. So it's like, I think everybody has to take initiative and people have to do it. It's not like it's just going to be available from the government. I think people have to take responsibility into their own hands and go and handle it. That's where I feel like that's one good thing in India. People are very motivated and very helpful. So I think that would be the future. So over to you, Ajay.
Yeah, thank you. Next question is for Rakhee, ma'am. Question is that how collaborative learning and peer learning can be imbibed in online learning?
Yes, collaborative and peer learning is something which is the need of the hour, especially since the time we have gone online, because as Mr. Subra was talking about, that remote learning isn't meant for everyone. It suits some and it doesn't suit some. So in such cases, it becomes important for educators to be mindful about how is it that they can bring in collaborative learning. So it all depends on the creativity of the educator as to how to bring this aspect into remote learning. So for example, students can be, especially if schools are using Zoom. I don't know how many of them are using. We have something called as a breakout room, and not many of our educators were acquainted with the breakout room when we did a session where we actually put them into breakout rooms to collaborate and discuss and then get back. So this is something which is very important. So the online platforms that the educators are using or which are being chosen by the school, they need to have this aspect incorporated where they give some time and some space for students to interact among themselves, probably to get going with each other on a basis, on a social interaction basis, where all this is missing right now in our classroom. So I think it's important for educators to be mindful and try to bring in peer-to-peer learning. And maybe even if the educators can, allocate time set aside only for, coming online and just doing a session, doing the work together, solving queries and just coming online to solve queries rather than coming online to teach. So maybe a child could be chosen to, present something for a day or for 15 minutes, followed by another child. So team presentations is something that students could start looking at, teachers could start looking at. And if you're using Zoom, then breakout rooms are fantastic to help in collaboration and get them to start actually interacting with one another. So this is something which again it depends on the content, and the teacher. So this is something which is really required to bring into remote learning. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is also for you.
Yeah.
That is, do you think online platforms would make evaluating students difficult?
Yes, evaluation and assessment is something which is being questioned right now because a lot of us are struggling and we really don't know what is the way forward for assessment and evaluation, because we have never done it. And we never even thought that, we would be in a, state where we would be taking evaluation online and expecting the learners to be charged of their own learning. Now this becomes difficult when we talk about lower grades. Higher grades, of course, they can take responsibility, but when it comes to the low grades, it's something which is still very shaky, and it's a gray area where we are actually trying to figure out that, okay, how do we enable, how do we check whether how do we evaluate and how do we check for learning? So this is something which is being researched. We have some edtech tools which have come up in the recent past, and we are trying that and we are working on that. We are kind of understanding that how is it that edtech tools could be integrated with the current scenario that we are facing. And as we move forward and as things normalize, probably then we can go back to the old way of assessment and evaluation, keeping in mind, of course, these are the new techniques that we can incorporate from time to time. So yes, the EdTech tools are coming very handy at this point in time, and we have a couple of them which we have tried. We've tried Mega Exams, and which allows you to take your exams online without much hassle. So yes, I think there's a lot of scope for EdTech tools out here, yeah, to help us in assessment.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. For all the viewers and for all the panelists, today morning I've just come across, I was just searching, I've just come across a new World Bank note that outlines 3 key principles to strengthen the teachers' effectiveness during and in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic, as well as the opportunities for long-run improvement. So I'll just read out the principle 3, which is like more connected to all of us. That is, support teachers technologically to ensure teachers' effectiveness. Countries and school systems that have weathered COVID-19 more successfully have also ensured their teachers have access to technology. As schools close in various countries, for instance, the teachers were provided free SIM cards to access educational material online and WhatsApp. But it is not just about providing technologies. Teachers must also know how to use the technology effectively. And on this aspect, we'll be carrying out a workshop, and that workshop will be carried out by Zotalab in association with some great teachers who will be part of it. And I further go on this principle 3. In Lebanon, the ministry has been training teachers to record and upload documents and hold virtual classes effectively. Not all the teachers will approach technology in the same way. They'll need to be supported with diverse strategies. As school systems settle, technology should be integrated into teaching learning processes as well as routine needs, such as HR systems. So this is like gist of principle 3 of the World Bank note I have given, and it has promptly and very adequately told about how the institutions and the government, they have to support the teachers, and how the teachers are supposed to embrace this new technology, and how they should deliver this particular content to the students who can be benefited once these manual classes are not happening. So I'm just waiting for some more questions. I think
Ajay, can I make one point? If you
yeah,
allow me?
please. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
see, typically my understanding over the period of time and with the interaction I'm having with many of the newer generation people and even the colleges is probably in India. I'm not aware about USA, but in India, we are treating education as a means and a process rather than as a purpose. And you know better that the engineering graduates land up with a job in police and or in a financial sector. In fact, today morning I was addressing a University of Pune Commerce School, and they were of the opinion that the graduation class is more eager to have an internship and a job. I told them that up to 18, that is the last thing you should have in mind. And then when you go for the graduation course, you should be thinking that what is that I want to do for the next 40 years or 45 years. And that can be a purpose by itself. You cannot have a filter process, which sadly is the part of India, part of the process in India. Now, what happens in school is probably we try to imbibe all sorts of a person. If you channelize the education system in India in a two divide, someone who is good in history, geography will be good in biology because that is rote learning. Someone who is good in science will be good in the maths and all those other subjects. So a good geography student might end up becoming a good doctor because his ability to learn by memorizing is more, and that is what is happening probably with the education system in India. Now, I think with the digital form setting in, people will start looking towards a more of a purpose approach rather than a means approach. This is but I don't know how a 4-year-old will evaluate this kind of a process. But obviously, through the journey of the 12 years in school and subsequently 4 to 6 years in post-graduation and graduation, I think this will come in a long way. So people will have more purpose towards education when the digitized form is there rather than today.
Thank you, Mr. Alakesh. I think there are no more questions, and I hand over to Priya ma'am.
I have a question for Alakesh.
Yes.
So quickly, so Alakesh, you're heading a very large organization. How do you evaluate people? Meaning you have thousands of people. Obviously, it comes from tiers, that each manager evaluates, but how do you do that right now? It's all obviously remote. It's been remote for a long, long time.
See, I'll tell you how the organization has changed over a period of time. Earlier, it was a typically a hierarchical based approach. Right. Obviously, the hierarchy is still there, and in India, we are fancied about designation, and you need to have certain kind of nameplate behind you to make yourself feel important. Now, what we have done with, obviously, the bell curve is there. No one can replace the bell curve because there has to be another bell curve or a better curve than a bell curve when you do that. Now, we have gone ahead with all the current norms like 360-degree evaluation and everything. Then we have come out with an idea that we attach the importance factor for that profile and the person. So a job may be relevant, but it may not have an impact. So this impact assessment of the organization or the people in the organization has to be done, and that is slowly what everyone is doing. If you look at even in the industry, which is in the technical sector, there are people who will do the jobs. They are required, but you can easily commoditize that kind of activity. Jobs in the future will become more and more. If you can stay non-commoditized, then only you will be able to succeed in life and in an organization. If you're in the commodity, like, okay, a purchase buyer, so you can have any buyer, whether buyer X and buyer Y, and with the digital technology coming in, e-tendering and all those things, so it will be more of a, why do you need a buyer? So, but then if you look at the technology and the advancement, you remember when the laptop came and the computers came, we thought that one who is having a laptop will be in an advantage. Now everyone has it. Mobile came, and all those technological innovations which came, today everything is available with you. In fact, in my organization, I am trying to bring down the number of touch points that a person has to undergo. He need not carry an iPad, a phone, and a laptop. What he can do with the phone, he need not go back to home and sit down and do it in the laptop. So and the other way. So that so the whole integration towards such kind of a evaluation will come up, and this is true for all across all industries everywhere. It cannot be only limited to a few organizations, few individuals. There will be persons who will have a higher impact, and there will be persons who will be required but having lesser impact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Subra. Thank you, Alakesh. I'll hand over to Priya ma'am.
Thank you so much. That was a real eye-opener for many of us. And I, as a teacher, would just like to share one or two just points in relation to what was spoken before. Extension of knowledge probably would be in the virtual learning, but the holistic development takes place in schools, of course. The current situation doesn't allow us like this, but the interpersonal skills or the learning process takes place, I think, in the school more than, and the collaborative and peer learning is also. But this will also pass, and with the point. Thank you so much. Right. All is well that ends well. If ends were just a beginning. Thank you all on behalf of Zotalabs to have taken out your valuable time to attend this webinar. We're also grateful to the esteemed panelists for this intellectually insightful session. Thankful to our channel partners, Teachers Help Teachers, and Aptron for this endeavor. A brief insight into Zotalabs. It was founded in 2019 after tirelessly researching on the current gaps in technology. Zotalab works in the emerging fields of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity to augment and automate the current mundane practices of enterprises and companies and provide a techno hand in terms of application programming interface, that can be integrated into their already established system. The Zotalab has planned various workshops and webinars which would enhance the awareness on the pioneering work carried out by the Zotalabs. You're requested to stay updated on the social media handles of Zotalabs. You're also welcome to visit the website www.zotalabs.com. All the participants would be given a participation certificate and would be notified in the next 3 or 4 days. At the end of the day, we must go forward and not backwards by fear and division. That's all from Zotalabs. Once again, thank you all for this wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.